Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Anthony Haggerty. Now, that name will be familiar to a lot of people who have an interest in Scottish football, because you were a sports journalist for 21 years writing for the Daily Record, Tony.
I was, Paul, yes.
And you say it was because you've come out of the game.
I came out of the game, yeah. In fact, on Friday it'll be a year since I left the Daily Record, and I came out, took voluntary redundancy, and I'm now at Glasgow Uni, studying to be an English teacher, hopefully.
No, that's brilliant. A great achievement, and well done to you. You've come out of a workplace which, you know, it was central to football fans in Scotland. We were just talking about that, how important it was to get the news as it was. Now, there's a whole generation of people maybe tuning into a Celtic State of Mind who never did that. But of course, it's a declining industry. And I remember meeting you when you were active as a journalist, and you said, you know, we're not all bad guys, Paul. Some of us support Celtic, you know. So it's great that you've come on to join us. And, you know, we can talk about some of your experiences in that game, in that field, and bring it right up to the 10 in a row and where we are just now as well, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. We met in the penalty spot in Sword Street. I think Simon Donnelly was doing a bit, yeah. And, you know, when you do something you love for 21 years, it comes across, you know, and regardless of what football team you support, I've always said that why should there be a problem with supporting a team and being a newspaper journalist, you know, or a sports journalist? And if you come from the west of Scotland, there's a big chance you'll support one of the big two.
Yeah.
You know, and I always thought that how come it was okay to be a Partick Thistle, St Johnstone, Dundee United, or Aberdeen fan, or any club in the media, but the minute you kind of aligned yourself with either or, then you were a target for verbal abuse or whatever, or people to make judgments on you, you know, especially when they don't actually know you as a person. But I think that, as a Celtic supporter, would you be any fervent or passionate as an Aberdeen fan, a Partick Thistle fan, a St Johnstone fan? I don't know.
The way I see it as well, Tony, is when things are going wrong, you're hurting as a Celtic fan, and that can sometimes come across in your writing because it means something to you. So if you want change, for example, and I'll go back probably to the 90s, it's not a Celtic Da reference, but back in the 90s, you know, if the whole mainstream media were dominated by people who were just dancing on Celtic's grave, then there would be various journalists out there who were supporting things like Fergus McCann coming in. That wouldn't have existed, but it did, because I know Kevin McKenna was shouting from the rooftops. I know that Hugh McDonald's was a massive supporter of Fergus as well. There's a few journalists who people probably wouldn't believe were also pushing for Fergus, because obviously over the years they've maybe been shown a bit of a kind of liking for the other side. But these things will happen. But what I like when I'm speaking to journalists, and I took this very, very early on when I was writing a book, was they're always willing to assist, and sometimes that's with contacts for players or ex-players. And there's some guys who I know are Celtic fans who are currently in the media who won't come on because they don't want to get the flack that you're going to get if you align yourself maybe to Celtic and you're working in the Scottish media.
I mean, I think that's a personal choice for some people, you know, and it could become an occupational hazard, you know, having stepped out it. I mean, most people knew I was a Celtic supporter anyway, you know. So I'd never actually hid it or tried to hide it, you know, as I didn't see any benefit from that. But it doesn't mean you could look obdurately at something, you know, with an obdurate eye. You were professional to the last, or I certainly tried to be. And a lot of people, even when I left, still didn't know who I supported. So you turn around and you think, okay, maybe I did something right, or maybe I did something wrong. But I always think your football team's a personal thing. You know, it's not up for question. You make a choice, and there is no wrong choice with the football team. You know, when you support, you know, there is no wrong choice. It's your football team, and that's it for life. And I also make the point that you can only support one football team.
Yeah.
See these people that say, "Oh, I'm a Barcelona fan," or "I'm a PSG fan," or "I'm a Juventus." You're not.
I always found that strange, Tony.
You know, you can only support one football team. You give your heart and soul to one team, and you stick with it. You know, because I don't know about you. You might like Barcelona, but you know, when they get beat, you don't run up your stairs and lock yourself in the bedroom and want to cry or whatever, you know. Only your football team, if it gets you the way it should, makes you want to, you know, you go through the whole gamut of emotions with your particular team. You laugh, you cry, you celebrate, you get despondent, and football's cyclical, as everybody says, so you go with it, but that's your choice. You make it very early, whether it comes from your family, your dad passing it down, your granddad, or whoever, or you make up your own mind because you've seen a particular player, or you like it, or it's basis you like a certain colour. It's your team.
Or if you were in Italy playing Subutio.
Yes, of course.
And you like the green and white hoops.
Of course, that's always a big one.
Yeah. Now, I totally get that, because you drive about these days, Tony, you see kids in Real Madrid strips or Barcelona strips, you think, if they get beat, or English football teams, if they get beat this weekend, it's not going to ruin your weekend. I know that if Celtic do as they just did, it absolutely engulfs you for longer than your weekend.
That's one thing that kind of saddens me when I see a lot of kids running about with foreign strips on or English tops on. You know, again, going back to, I guess it's personal choice, but a lot of it's the kind of following of successful teams. Mm-hmm. You know, they're never unfashionable teams. I don't see anyone run about with an Atalanta top on, you know, or a Leo top, you know, Nantes or whoever, you know. It's always Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Juventus, you know. And I'm sure they all do have Scottish teams, all these kids that they support. But, you know, when I was a kid growing up, it was a big thing to purchase a Scottish football strip of your team. It was a major thing to own, you know. And when it came on the day it came out, you were like, oh, I need to get that. I need to get that, you know. And you had your favourite player name maybe emblazoned on the back, or your own surname or whatever. But you took real pride in that, you know. It was a kind of declaration of, this is my team. Mm-hmm. I'm wearing their colours
proudly,
you know, proudly,
definitely,
you know. And the results were what they were, and you dealt with it accordingly growing up. Mm-hmm. You know,
talking about growing up, and again, I'm not harking back too much to the good old days, because we are in the process at the moment of making history or breaking history or allowing it to run away from us. Tony, no one knows what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months, but we will remember when Celtic were stopping the 10, and I know a lot of Celtic fans don't even say that. They'll say that they were winning the 1. But when Rangers had won 9 in a row, going for the 10, Wim Jansen comes in, and you look at the way that team was assembled, the mentality that was created, and I say created because it was from the management and the way that they approached it. And then we now look at the situation where, it's turned around and we're going for the 10. And you've got a team here who, man for man, I don't think are as good as Celtic. If you were comparing coach to coach, Lenny's won a lot in the game as a manager and Gerrard has not. But we're facing a situation where this is a real challenge. Do you see any things that resemble back in the day when we were trying to stop the 10?
Without a doubt. I spoke to you off here just before coming on, and I believe right now, I think it's disingenuous to call Steven Gerrard a rookie manager now. He's 2 years in the job, but he's showing increasing signs of learning. They've got not a bad record in Europe, taken a few scouts or claimed a few scouts, right? He's assembled a band of players there who are playing for him, you know. And I said this to you, it's a quest now. It's become a mission. They have to stop the 10. It's this year or bust. The same way as Wim Jansen, when he came in, moulded his side, and they had to stop the 10, you know. And what you say, that I'm firmly it was a winning of the 1. I was in that camp. It was a celebration of what was achieved, what not what wasn't. I'm very much the former as opposed to the latter. And there are similarities, but I think the one thing that Rangers have got this season over what that Celtic team had is no crowds. Now, there's not that pressure. If you remember going back to that season, every misplaced pass was a tragedy.
Yeah.
You know, every goal that was scored against you was just, it was the end of the world. You know, and I remember my father's big hero was Jock Stein, and he just couldn't reconcile himself with the fact that Rangers would eclipse his record. And so that season he became really embroiled in it and passionate, and you know, and I used to look at him and think, you know, you'll need to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Rangers have that added bonus that they're not playing at Ibrox with the expectations of the supporters bearing down on them at the moment. You know, so there's a wee bit of freedom that they can play with, and they can express themselves, and nobody's there to shirk them or chide them or, you know, or get on their case. So I think the pressure's slightly off. You know, Van Jansen's team, I mean, they started poorly. You know, very poorly.
Yeah.
You know, and the dreadlocked one giving the ball away to Mr. Chick Charnley, who thrashed it into the net, and going back to, you know, people making snap judgments of Henrik Larsson right there and then. Mm-hmm. He'll no do.
I know.
Because he misplaced a pass. Now we've got snap judgments of the manager, the current manager. You know, but what I will say is, I think most people, and I gave you this stat earlier, most people are annoyed at the fact that they've played Rangers. And the last three times they've played Rangers, I'll give you an interesting stat. They've had 6 shots on target. 5 in the game that they lost 2-1 in November, 1 in the cup final, which they scored from, and none in that game there. Now, there's a worrying trend developing for a lot of supporters in terms of the managers, you know. And I think people are beginning to kind of think that Gerrard now has a hex over Neil Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying the same back in November when they lost. And then Celtic, you know, reeled off an impressive set of victories and stuff, you know. But
They did, Tony.
So you have to weigh these things up. The knee-jerk's always to blame. But you're looking at it, and you're looking at the manager, and you're looking at the way the team's played. There's something no functioning. There's something not right.
This is the one thing that we've spent this week, certainly, talking about. We've spent a lot of the period this season talking about the performances, and we can't quite put our finger on it. And the reason for that, Tony, is you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know. You hear the rumours. You try not to focus on them, because a lot of the time, you know, the sources aren't good, or they're doing it to ruffle feathers before a big game. So then what you think about is, well, Edouard's not firing on all cylinders. Absolutely not. And Cham, who is a player that I rate very, very highly, it looked like a shadow of what we know he can achieve on Saturday. And there's others we could go through, and it's not about criticising every player, but they certainly are not playing as a unit. And a lot of the players that we would normally expect performances from aren't delivering. So when we're looking back over the last 9 in a row, you've got Lenny Mark 1 and Mark 2. I've asked people who know Neil Lennon, you know, how he's changed and what's the differences, etc. But obviously you've dealt with these people. You've dealt with Ronnie Dyler. You've dealt with Brendan Rodgers. And I think it would be interesting to look at the 9 seasons of domestic dominance and some of the anecdotes and some of the things that stood out for you around these 3 managers.
Well, first and foremost, Lennon Mark 1 was a firebrand. Mm-hmm. You saw it for yourself, the League Cup final and stuff like that, when he stormed the pitch, and you know, and he had all sorts of other issues to contend with as well, with the incident at Tynecastle and stuff like that, you know, and a lot of he met fire with fire, mm-hmm. shall we say, mm-hmm. Lennon, and he wanted to really stamp his authority on the Celtic job, you know, so he felt that he should be there, and he wanted to make a point, and he was always great value, never ever ducked a question. You ask Neil Lennon a question, you get a straight answer. He never ever said, nah, I'm not answering that. And but to his detriment sometimes, because he was too open mm-hmm. at times, you know, not so much in giving tactical knowledge away, but just, you know, there's a time when you sort of say, right, rein yourself in, but he couldn't help himself, you know, and he just wanted what was best for the club and what was what was best for Celtic and what was best for himself at that moment in time. You know, and Lennon Mark 1 against Lennon Mark 2, there's a distinct contrast. He has mellowed a lot, you know, and it's, you know, the Lennon Mark 1 was some of his conduct, and I'll say this, I didn't particularly think it was befitting of a man holding that high position, or holding a job that, as a supporter, you think's the best football job in the world, you know. But again, he was learning. It was his first managerial job, so you get your mistakes out the road, I guess, you know. But they still won the titles, you know, and it takes a special kind of manager to get players to play for you to win a title. You know, he judged over a season, and you never wanted a Lennon stare. Let's put it that way. It was quite something if you sat across and you got the Lennon eyes, you know, and no words required, you know, because he'd be quite one of them. But he loved a laugh and a joke and a carry on, and you know, and but he was serious when it came to his football stuff, and he said he always said that he didn't ask players to do anything that he had never experienced or did himself, working under guys like Martin O'Neill. Yeah. You know, Ronnie Dyler was just a guy that won the lottery, you know, and the loveliest man that you could ever hope to meet, just rode the wave, the 2-year wave that he was on, you know. And he loved being there, and he loved the fact that Celtic had approached him, and I think, to be fair to Celtic, I think it was an experiment, because I think they thought that they had kind of unearthed the next Mourinho at an early stage, and I admire their ambition for that. And what I will say is that I wouldn't like Ronnie Dyler's chapter in Celtic's history in 9/10, if it does become that, to be airbrushed at all, because he was a big part of it. Yeah. You know, he came in at a time when everybody said, oh, it was a doddle. It's not a doddle to win a title at any level. You know, you have to, and he came in as a foreigner, and, you know, having not had much success with had success in his own home. Yeah. But not with a fashionable club. So it was a total gamble. But he was a very affable guy, and another one who loved a laugh and a joke, and, you know, he loved his 2 years, but I think he realised himself eventually that as the pressure started to build, was man enough to admit, I'm leaving here, because I just start, you know, and you know, his kind of tenure was tarnished with that loss on penalties to Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final. And that can happen when it goes to a penalty shootout. You know, should they have won that game? Yeah, probably, but they didn't. So, but I don't think that in any way can blemish the 2 years, successful years that he had. Yeah. You know, when I look at Ronnie Dyler, and it's interesting that you mention about Lenny Mark 1 and 2, because I think Celtic fans are looking for the thunder to return a wee bit, you know, because we think back to the famous one was Tony Mowbray. You got Tony Mowbray and Peter Grant, and Granty as a player was always so animated, love him or loathe him, he was always animated. But then on the sidelines, it was just almost like, you know, not disinterest, Tony, but, you know, it was very much like, you know, within themselves. And a lot of the time, Neil Lennon seems to be like that just now. And again, he's maybe not buzzing as much off the crowd who are not there, etc. But you want to see a wee bit more of that. But the interesting thing, Ronnie, I think his legacy has been, he was a talent spotter. And, you know, he gave debuts to Kieran Tierney, Callum McGregor, Chris Ayer, Ryan Christie, players who have played a massive part in the 9 in a row. Yeah, and also gave you the Ronnie Roar. You know, there was grown men refusing to leave Parkhead until they'd got the Ronnie Roar. You know, grown men, and I used to laugh at that. I thought, well, there you go. You gave them something, you know. But yeah, going back to the players you said that he brought through, they've been pivotal to 9 in a row. So got a lot to thank Ronnie for. And also, I agree as well. I think a lot of Celtic supporters want the firebrand Neil Lennon back, because they're studying his body language in the chair at the moment, and as he lost his mojo a wee bit, and a bit of that temperament that he had, you know, volatility that maybe spark himself, the team, into life. But maybe Celtic are struggling with the fact that they don't have crowds, that they can, that energy that they can feed off, so it's all kind of feeding. But, you have to say that you've got to still trust the manager to get it right, because he's got it right so far. And maybe this is a test in time and a blip, but if there's decisions to be made about Neil Lennon, then they're going to have to be made soon.
Yeah.
Rather than later. And that's not me advocating anything to say that Neil Lennon should walk away or should be removed from office, because I don't think that. But I think if others at the club are thinking that way, then, be careful what you wish for. I told you this off here, but I'll tell people that a lot of people, and this is not a defence of any shape or form about somebody who I claim is a friend. When I left the newspaper, talking about anecdotal stuff, and I told a few of my contacts I was leaving, and one guy in particular stepped up to the plate, and it was Neil Francis Lennon, who invited me to Lennoxtown one day and let me watch training and gave me 3 hours of his time, just as to say thank you to me for dealing with him, and just to say kind of cheerio, and hopefully our paths would meet. And he kind of left me, and when I got my unconditional for Glasgow Uni, he texted me to say if I can help you at all in any way, shape or form moving forward, then don't hesitate, you've got my number. And people all say, you've got my number, and people very rarely use it, but I still text him every now and again and he'll respond. And you don't get into football journalism to become friendly with people. That was more circumstance than anything else. But regardless of your thoughts as a manager, or Neil Lennon as a manager, as a person, he's up there in my estimation, because he didn't have to do that. And and I just thought that was kind of a class act, and that's a side to Neil Lennon that not a lot of people see. I don't think he kind of puts it out there. They have their own opinion of him. But that's a Neil Lennon that I know and got to know, and was privileged to get to know because of the job that I did and the mode of employment that I had. And I never ever took that for granted. I don't text him every day, because it's just, I never ever, it's not my position to do that, But it was just a cracking 3 hours, and I thought to myself, I'll never ever sit in the office of a Celtic manager ever again for 3 hours doing what we are doing just now, laughing, joking, observations of the team, criticising this and that, and it was a brilliant thing to do, and it was an even better thing to do without flicking a dictaphone on, or
I bet.
It was just it was magic, and I respect him for that, because one, he didn't have to, and two, he went out of his way to just sort of give me a kind of proper send off after all those years. So that was good. But as I say, that's not a defence of a guy saying, because he's not my best pal, he's just somebody that I've happened to know very well in the mode of employment that I did. So, but the jury's still, not my personal jury still, I still think he can get it right, but I think a lot of Celtic supporters they're just disappointed with the last 3 games against Rangers and the nature of the performances, which have been pretty insipid. They won the cup final because the big wall was in goal, They lost in November because they were beaten by a hungrier team, and they lost there because I think you and I both know that the wrong team was maybe, the wrong starting 11 was maybe put out there.
Absolutely. The big thing as well is when you look at the Lennon of old, and you're looking at, and I know sometimes the cameras can play out tricks on you because it's a split moment, Tony, so it looks like Lenny's just sitting there with his arms crossed, but he might have been out and we've just not seen it because we're not at the games as much. And the thing with me is, I'm asking myself, because I've been supportive on this podcast, sometimes very much criticised for being supportive of Neil Lennon. I'm now wondering, can he turn this around? And the fact that you've studied him as a football manager over a long period of time, you've seen the appointments of Ronnie Dyler, you've seen the appointment of Brendan Rodgers, Neil Lennon's back. Do you think he can turn it around?
I think he deserved the chance to turn it around. I think he deserves the time to turn it around. But if, again, I go back to it, if someone in a more prominent position at Celtic than me has decided that he can't turn it around, then that's something that's going to have to be decided ASAP, you know, because did they limp on to, you know, they go to Pittodrie on Sunday, and if they lose that, and I'm not saying they will lose that, but they could conceivably lose to Milan, they could conceivably lose to Aberdeen, you know, how long do you let it go if that's your thinking? But I think the manager, after what happened in December last year, has earned the right to at least try and mould his team and, you know, get them back to where they were, you know. But I think there's panic setting in amongst the Celtic supporters, you know, because 10's just so important, you know. And you go back to the one I never touched on was Brendan Rodgers, and Brendan Rodgers, it was just, and I know the Celtic supporters have their own thoughts and names for Brendan, but Brendan Rodgers to me is just, he's the second best manager in the history of the club, you know, bar one. We all know who that is.
Yeah.
And I think, given time's a great healer, and people will eventually look on Brendan Rodgers' tenure at Celtic as a really fantastic time. You know, an invincible treble, a double treble, you know, some magnificent wins over Rangers. What did he play, 13 or 14 or 1-11, drew one, lost one or something?
Lost one, drew one, yeah.
You know,
and the wins were emphatic often.
And the wins were emphatic. And people saying so they should be because they had the most money and they had the best team. Yeah, and granted they should have been, but I don't think the Celtic supporters could have you know, envisaged the fact that players like Moussa Dembele would come in, Edouard, you know, they would beat Rangers 5-1 home and away, beat them 5-0, 4-0, you know, just unbelievable times. And a moment in time where Tom Rogic scores that goal and the lightning does strike, and you know, for supporters of my age, your age, you know, if domestically is your yardstick, like domestic football's your yardstick, and European football's something that is maybe beyond your reach at this minute, then to go through a whole season and win everything unbeaten, you know, it's up there with great moments in Celtic's history. It has to be.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and I defy any Celtic supporter to say, whether they were at the game or not, that they had an outer body experience after Tom Rogic scored. I know I did. I was standing with my dad and my nephew, and we were just to the side of the press box, and I was aware of, you know, people would know I was there, but, you know, as I say, I never ever had, I was a fan. And Tasmanian Devil meets Yosemite Sam when Rogic scored. I just lost it, to the point where my nephew said to me, do you know what I loved about that game? The fact that you let yourself go. After 20 odd years of sitting, being kind of impassive about it and just trying to take it all in your stride, be neutral, I lost it. And you live for moments like that in football. That's, you know, and Brendan Rodgers gave Celtic supporters that. You know, he built that team and he built that mentality, and remember, he came on the back of such a crushing disappointment when they lost to Rangers in penalties at Hampden, and everybody worshipped him in, you know, 13,000 turning up, he's unveiling, and they just hoped, a bit like when Martin O'Neill came in, and he said the same kind of thing, I'll try my best and I hope to bring success to your football club. Boy, did he bring success, you know. And the banner at Tynecastle annoyed me when he left, and I get the circumstances how he left and the club that he left for, but if you're Brendan Rodgers, your football world revolves around being in the so-called self-proclaimed best league in the world. I'm sorry, it does. Yeah, did he dupe people by saying he'd been a Celtic supporter all his life? Possibly. But I tell you what, he was convincing. He was a great actor then. You know,
Who didn't believe it?
Yeah,
Who didn't believe it?
Yeah, and he never ever gave you the impression that he wouldn't leave before 9 or 10. You know, so and I think the Celtic supporters fell out with themselves a bit over that because he was a messiah, and they followed the messiah, and they would have followed the messiah to the ends of the earth. And see, as a journalist going to a Brendan Rodgers press conference, it was nothing like I'd heard before or since. It was an education, the way he thought about football. You know, he slept and breathed football, and you know, you were just sitting there thinking, don't ask a banal question, don't ask a banal question. You know, but see, even if he didn't matter. He would answer it, and he was good, and he was also great. You know, work experience kids would come in, various newspapers, you know, and he'd sit down, and the first thing he'd say is, "There's a new face. Who are you?"
Brilliant.
You know,
yep.
And he shook their hand, and he would talk to them for about 2 or 3 minutes before anything had even started. And you imagine a kid going home and saying to their mum and dad, "I went to Lennoxtown today and Brendan Rodgers spoke to me." You know, I saw in the news recently that Jurgen Klopp had written a letter to a 14-year-old boy who said he gets anxious. Tremendous.
Oh, it's brilliant.
What a way to deal with people, and also just a guy who got it as well about being a custodian and ambassador and just the public face of Celtic. You know, and when I hear fans be so, you know, disrespectful towards him and name calling, it jars with me a bit. You know, I just think that give it time and they'll love what he did at Celtic. You know, he's revolutionised that whole club.
I was going to ask you there, you were talking there about a mentality, and that certainly did change, didn't it, under Brendan Rodgers? I mean, so many things changed behind the scenes that we're maybe only learning about now, but the whole mentality, the club, I'm going to say the club changed, because going back to somebody we mentioned earlier, Johnny Owens just done a film on the Three Kings, Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, Jock Stein. Now, you could add other names into that, but these types of managers, Brian Clough, Don Revie, Alex Ferguson, managed the entire club to the point where their influence could be seen from the tea lady to the boardroom. And I think that when Rodgers came in, it was the first time we'd seen that in a long time, Tony.
He was omnipresent. Mm-hmm. No, omnipotent almost. He was given a blank canvas and told, go and paint your own picture, you know, and boy, did he do that, you know, and would not have come to Celtic had they not granted him that, you know. And for once, not for once, that's maybe, but to be fair to Celtic, it was a massive coup getting Brendan Rodgers, right?
Yep.
And also, it was an even bigger coup to just give him free rein. Didn't get it right all the time, you know, European results, you know, some of them were not befitting of a club of Celtic stature, but, you know, that's fair enough. But again, I get back to it that European football at the minute for Scottish clubs is kind of somewhere in the ether, you know. They need to kind of build themselves up again and get better, you know, in order to compete at any kind of level, you know.
You look even at the developments in the last few days of the big leagues and the big teams looking to go further into the distance by jumping ship from UEFA to FIFA and creating a brand new tournament. And we know that Scottish football will never be part of these plans, Tony. And Celtic, with its rich European history, might not be part of that type of plan.
The saddest part about that is that Celtic kicked off European football's Cinderella story. Mm-hmm. Celtic kicked that off because they came from a part of the globe that wasn't a football superpower, you know, and the reason a lot of people watched it was because it was on the BBC.
Yeah.
So the World Service could, you know, televise this game, and also the kind of romantic thing about the fact that all the players were from the 30-mile radius, that kind of thing. But Celtic came from nowhere. It's the ultimate football Cinderella story. paved the way for others to come, you know. Now, you talked about Matt Busby. No, who's to say the Busby Braves might have been the first British club to win the European Cup, because that team seemingly were good enough, you know. But, you know, tragedy struck them, and that's particularly sad, you know. But Celtic showed how you didn't have to be a fashionable club to win the big one. Yet now, nothing is more abhorrent to the men in suits that an unfashionable club could ever win the big one again.
No,
because right. They see they don't bring any value to the table. And it's bordering on a football crime. You know?
No, because
football's all about the dreamers.
The fairy tale, yep.
You know, and Celtic were dreamers back in 67. Caught a moment in time, you know, and how prophetic of Steen to say when they got the Sports Team of the Year in BBC, and they got the trophy off Matt Busby, and he said, here's hoping the next hands in this trophy are yours. You know, just, I mean, crazy. But, you know, and if you take that out of football, then what have you got? I love Scottish football, Paul. People are so down on Scottish football because they compare it to La Liga, they compare it to England, they compare it to, you know, leagues that are awash with cash. You may as well call these teams in all of these leagues Moneyball 1, Moneyball 2, Moneyball 3, right? Down to 22. Scottish football's honest. There's an honesty about it, right? We're not kidding MD on, right? And what it lacks in millions of pounds in skill and technique, it makes up for in heart and passion. Going back to why you support a football team, you know, the will to win. Just there's an honesty and a realness about it. You know, people can disagree with that, but no, there's nothing better for me on a Saturday than being sent to, and I could be sent anywhere. I could be Celtic Park, or I could be Central Park, Cowdenbeath. Doesn't matter. Didn't matter to me. Somebody was paying me to write about something that I loved, and a sport that just the world over's, you know, people love it. But see, when the Suits decided that they were going to turn it into a business, they ripped the heart and the soul out of football. In fact, they ripped the guts out of football.
No, they did.
And I'm glad to say that Scottish football hasn't gone down that road. People will argue and say that Celtic kind of have, because they're the richest club and they're the best players, and that's and I get that argument too. But you know, in every league there has to be a richer club because they have bigger resources. You know, so but my own feeling is that I don't think the product in Scotland's as bad as people say it is, because you can go through any league and say it's a 2-horse race, a 3-horse race, or whatever, or pick out clips that don't portray it in a great light, you know. But for every one of them, I'll give you 10 great moments of skill, or 10 reasons why, you know, I loved Hamilton St Johnstone last week. You know, do you see somebody like Stevie May and Craig Conway, go back the years, play fantastically well?
Yeah.
You know, things like that, you go, wow, that was vintage. Remember when they...
And what other country in the world has a stadium like Central Park, like you referenced before?
Yeah, you know.
What a place.
You know, so...
with the stock cars, you know.
You know, correct. And you look at it and think, whoa, the land that time forgot, you know, that kind of thing. But, and if 500 people want to support Cowdenbeath every week, that's their team. No, I remember Pat Rolling, who's a comedian and a big Celtic fan, you might know Pat, but he was once one of the Albion Rovers directors, and they drew Rangers in the Cup, and they were cock-a-hoop, and they were, you know, brilliant windfall for everybody. And I remember having a conversation with Pat one day, and I was doing a bit, because he was going out in a van and a loudspeaker, Coatbridge and Airdrie, trying to get more fans in the door. And I said to him, what would make a difference, Pat, to your attendance? And his answer stunned me. He said, if we could get 25 more punters in through the door, paying between a tenner and 15 quid or 12 quid, I went, see, I was waiting for him to say a couple of hundred, but he said that 25 could pay a gas bill, an electricity bill, you know, and I was like, wow, you know, and that's the way these clubs kind kind of lived and existed, and I went, wow. And that kind of fine margins, you know, you talk about football clubs, but if you obliterated Albion Rovers, and, you know, it doesn't matter how many people support Albion Rovers, but it's their club.
Yeah.
You can't play God with football clubs because they're no cash rich.
They're not fashionable enough for your master plan.
You know, and I've loved Scottish football for that. People say we have too many clubs. I'm the opposite. I think, isn't it great that so many people support so many different clubs, and you go to one corner of Scotland to the next, and, you know, they'll support their team with a fervour and a passion, and, you know, and they love it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
And by the way, a pal of mine's a season ticket holder at Central Park, so I wasn't having a dig at Cowden.
Oh, neither was I. I just picked that out the air because definitely. It was Celtic Park and Central Park, so there's a kind of alliteration there. Just that.
No, it is an experience, let me tell you. Now, the thing with tomorrow night, we've spoken about European football, it's almost taking a back seat this week, Tony. Yeah. The AC Milan game normally would be sitting here buzzing about a game that we were going to.
Yeah.
People are looking ahead to the Aberdeen game. You and I spoke before saying, you know, the work starts here for the Aberdeen game. We need to get a performance out of the team. What changes can you see Neil Lennon making tomorrow night?
There has to be some kind of reaction tomorrow, you know, and I don't really agree with this free hit expression in football, but I guess this is as good a free hit as you're going to get, you know, because Celtic's focus and drive should be on the 10. Europa League's a distraction. It's a nice one, but, you know, if they're really fixed, they're fixating on the league, or they should be, you know. So I think tomorrow will be the ideal time to bring in the likes of Turnbull, but of dynamism in the midfield, you know, a guy that can run up and down. And I watched a lot of Turnbull when I was through the job, and I covered Motherwell a lot, and great kid, just and a baller, you know. He's got it. I believe, in my humble opinion, he has it, you know. And you know, in 45 minutes against Hibs this season was probably Celtic's best performance, and Turnbull was instrumental in that. Set up a jetty for a lovely third goal, you know. And I think a lot of people were disappointed that he wasn't in the team on Saturday.
Yeah,
because a lot of people like me can maybe take or leave in Sham. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's cold, he's a passenger, you know. Again, I don't mean that to be critical. It's an observation more than anything else, that I just feel he's got so much more to contribute. But if it's not going for him, then, you know,
he's a 4 out of 10.
Aye,
yeah,
you know. And I think Turnbull could maybe have given them something different on Saturday. Like McGregor, he can get up and down. He's, you know, he got an eye for a pass. He can take a set piece. You know, he can rifle one in from 20 yards, 30 yards range. You know, and I'd like to see Griffiths get an extended run now if Edouard's not fit. But you touched on it earlier that, you know, Edouard hasn't been firing on all cylinders since the start of the season.
Yeah.
So guys like that, they're not, you know, they're not undroppable. You know, you have to understand that Celtic are chasing history. You know, so you have to play your part. You have to step up to the plate. And just because you're French Eddie doesn't mean you walk into the team. You know, you've got to produce. And the talent he's got, that's what's annoying Celtic fans, the talent that he's got. It's off the charts, it's off the scale. And, you know, you look at him sometimes and he has that languid kind of lackadaisical style that a lot of these guys have. Dembele had it, but he always switched on in the big games.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Dembele, you know, his record against Rangers spoke for itself. Man City goal, stuff like that, because he got it. You know, sometimes French Eddie gets it, and other times I think he doesn't. You know, he just thinks he can stroll through it and think there'll come a moment in the game where I'll beat 3 and hunky-dory, you know. But that moment might not come, as it's not came in a few games this season.
All too regularly for,
you know,
for our liking.
Yeah, for someone who, you know, is sublimely talented. Now, I would have preferred Griffiths to start last week, because he would have ran the channels and he would have always looking to score. The minute the ball goes to Griffiths' feet, the first thing he's thinking, can I get a shot? I get a shot in here. And also, Rangers are terrified of him because he's got a good scoring record against them too. So they needed a spark against St Johnstone and Perth. Sparky gave him, he came on and scored. You know, so what more could he do to say, look, might not be back at my best, might not be fit, but I'm up for this challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So the inclusion of Klimala and El Yunusi was baffling. You know, Klimala scored a lovely goal too in the St Johnstone game, took it really well. But, you know, you ask any Celtic supporter who they would have started last week, it'd have been Griffiths, you know.
Without a doubt, Tony.
Don't want to hark back to last week because it was abject, it was miserable, it was, you know, and I touched upon the shots on target. Lee Griffiths would have had 6 shots on target himself.
Yeah, I know.
On Saturday.
And he came in 67 minutes, I think. You know, that was a frustrating.
You know,
when you're looking at the changes as well, Tony, it's something that I've been pretty critical of Neil Lennon. You know, making the changes too late. Every change was made at 2-0.
Yeah.
And Griffiths is a guy that can give you the spark, you know. But
you touched on it before you went on air. After 15 minutes, you knew it wasn't working on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Managers are loath to change things after 15 minutes because it's an admission of, I've called it wrong. But I tell you what, Celtic supporters would have respected Neil Lennon big time if he did. And then had they got beat, but shown a bit more in an attacking sense. You know, see to not have a shot on goal in a Celtic Rangers game. I don't know about you, but it's, you know, you'll go a long way and dig in the archives to find another game like that, you know. And as much as the manager can maybe make excuses and say that they were without certain personnel, the object of football is to score goals.
Mm-hmm.
They never had a shot on target against Rangers last week.
Well, Tony, tomorrow night I'm hoping that all changes, and I hope, like yourself, that Griffiths gets a run out. And I also hope this season you can come back in and join us again on a Celtic State of Mind. It's been brilliant today,
pleasure,
catching up. And,
great,
you know, good luck for everything this season yourself.
Thank you.
All that's left for me to say is, Anthony Haggerty, thanks for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Pleasure, thank you.